The Devil and the Broker by Bret Harte. A medieval legend. The church clocks in San Francisco were striking 10. The devil, who had been flying over the city that evening, just then alighted on the roof of a church near the corner of Bush and Montgomery streets. It will be perceived that the popular belief that the devil avoids holy edifices and vanishes at the sound of a credo or paternoster is long since exploded. Indeed, modern skepticism asserts that he is not averse to these orthodox discourses, which particularly bear reference to himself and, in a measure, recognize his power and importance. And orthodox is typically not the primal. What is labeled as orthodox is typically not the primal version of such faiths. I am inclined to think, however, that his choice of a resting place was a good idea, influenced by its contingency to a populous thoroughfare. When he was comfortably seated, he began pulling out the joints of a small rod, which he held in his hand, and which presently proved to be an extraordinary fishing pole with a telescopic adjustment that permitted its protraction to a marvelous extent. Affixing a line thereto, he selected a fly of a particular pattern from a small box which he carried with him, and, making a skillful cast, threw his line into the very center of that living stream which ebbed and flowed through Montgomery Street. Either the people were very virtuous that evening, or the bait was not taking one. In vain the devil whipped the stream at an eddy in the front of the Occidental, or trawled his line into the shadows of the Cosmopolitan. 5 minutes passed without even a nibble. "Dear me," quoth the devil, "that's very singular. One of my most popular flies, too." "Why, they'd have risen by the shoals in Broadway or Beacon Street for that. Well, here goes another." And fitting a new fly from his well-filled box, he gracefully recast his line. For a few moments there was every prospect of sport. The line was continually bobbing, and the nibbles were distinct and gratifying. Once or twice the bait was apparently gorged and carried off in the upper stories of the hotels to be digested at leisure. At such times, the professional manner in which the devil played out his line would have thrilled the heart of Isaac Walton. But his efforts were unsuccessful. The bait was invariably carried off without hooking its victim, and the devil finally lost his temper. "I've heard of these San Franciscans before," he muttered. "Wait till I get hold of one, that's all," he added malevolently, as he rebaited his hook. A sharp tug and a wriggle foiled his next trial, and finally, with considerable effort, he landed a portly 200-pound broker upon the church roof. As the victim lay there gasping, it was evident that the devil was in no hurry to remove the hook from its gills, nor did he exhibit in his delicate operation that courtesy of manner and graceful manipulation which usually distinguished him. "Come," he said gruffly, as he grasped the broker by the waistband, "quit that whining and grunting. Don't flatter yourself that you're a prize either. I was certain to have had you. It was only a question of time." Well, we can say that when certain people are led astray or led down a certain path, it takes others with them, therefore, you know. It is not that, my lord, which troubles me, whined the unfortunate wretch, as he painfully wriggled his head, but that I should have been fooled by such a paltry bait. What will they say of me down there, to have let bigger things go by, and to be taken in by this cheap trick? He added, as he groaned and glanced at the fly, which the devil was carefully rearranging. Is what, pardon me, my lord, is what gets me. Yes, said the devil philosophically. I never caught anybody yet who didn't say that. But tell me, ain't you getting somewhat fastidious down there? Here is one of my most popular flies, the greenback, he continued, exhibiting an emerald-looking insect, which he drew from his box. This, so generally considered excellent in election season, has not even been nibbled at. Perhaps your sagacity, which in spite of this unfortunate contretemps, no one can doubt, added the devil, with a graceful return to his usual courtesy, may explain the reason or suggest a substitute. Well, what gets people, and it adds up. And often when people get pulled down into a full fall by one bad choice, they forget all the traps that they fell for along the way. Or they don't judge them for what they were. The broker glanced at the contents of the box with a supercilious smile. Too old-fashioned, my lord, long ago played out, yet, added with a gleam of interest, for consideration I might offer something ahem, that would make a taking substitute for these trifles. Give me, he continued in a brisk, business-like way, a slight percentage and a bonus down, and I'm your man. Name your terms, said the devil earnestly. My liberty and a percentage on all you take, and the thing's done. The devil caressed his tail thoughtfully for a few moments. He was certain of the broker anyway, and the risk was slight. Done, he said. Stay a moment, said the artful broker. There are certain contingencies. Give me your fishing rod and let me apply the bait myself. It requires a skillful hand, my lord. Even your well-known experience might fail. Leave me alone for half an hour, and if you have risen to complain of my success, I will forfeit my deposit. I mean my liberty. Well, isn't all taking loans at interest, that sort of thing? The devil ascended to his request, bowed and withdrew. Alighting gracefully in Montgomery Street, he dropped into the Mead & Co.'s clothing store, where, having completely equipped himself a la mode, he sallied forth, intent on his personal enjoyment. Determined to sink his professional character, he mingled with the current of human life and enjoyed, with that immense capacity for excitement particular to his nature, the rural bustle and feverishness of the people, as a purely aesthetic gratification, unalloyed by the cares of business. What he did that evening does not belong to our story. We return to the broker, whom we left on the roof. When he made sure that the devil had retired, he carefully drew from his pocketbook a slip of paper and affixed it on the hook. The line had scarcely reached the current before he felt a bite. The hook was swallowed. To bring up his victim rapidly, disengage him from the hook, and reset his line was the work of a moment. Another bite and the same result. Another and another. In a very few minutes, the roof was covered with his panting spoil. The broker could himself distinguish that many of them were personal friends, nay, some of them were familiar frequenters of the building on which they were now miserably stranded. That the broker felt a certain satisfaction on being instrumental in thus misleading his fellow brokers. No one acquainted with human nature will for a moment doubt but a stronger pull on his line caused him put forth all his strength and skill. The magic pole bent like a coach whip. The broker held firm, assisted by the battlements of the church. Again and again it was almost wrested from his hand, and again and again he slowly reeled in a portion of the tightening line. At last, with one mighty effort, he lifted to the level of the roof a struggling object. A howl like a pandemonium rang through the air as the broker successfully landed at his feet. The devil himself. The two glared fiercely at each other. The broker, perhaps mindful of his former treatment, evinced no haste to remove the hook from his antagonist's jaw. When it was finally accomplished, he asked quietly if the devil was satisfied. That gentleman seemed absorbed in the contemplation of the bait, which he had just taken from his mouth. I am, he said finally. I forgive you, but what do you call this? Bend low, replied the broker, as he buttoned up his coat, ready to depart. The devil inclined his ear. I call it wild cat. And often things happen because the religious authorities, the religious organizations, as they're called, they've not only, we can't do anything, not their fault, but that they didn't tell people right from wrong. They even encourage things. I've seen even announced that people were, that people, gambling in churches and stuff like this. Definitely more and more. The month where I'm recording this, there's some of the most active churches are actively promoting sex outside of marriage, or they're promoting marriage that is not sound by any type of religion. I mean, that's based on revealed claims, of course. Now, if people edit things out and form their own thing, but you know what I mean.